Hey everyone, and as the channel celebrates its 8th birthday or thereabouts, might be a week off, I think it's time we took another look at all the desktop environments for Linux and rank them in the usual yearly tier list. Obviously, I'll show some elements of each desktop. This is all very subjective. These are my opinions related to how I like using a computer, so you might have different opinions, and we won't cover tiling window managers because I don't really like those, and I made a video explaining why, which you'll find down in the description. So no sponsors, nothing, let's just get started with all the rankings. And of course we have to start with Cosmic, which is the newcomer basically in the Linux desktop space. Now they've released their first version, the Epoch 1 version, and they've been updating it on a weekly basis with bug fixes, new features, and all of that jazz. And Cosmic, last time I placed at the good level, so what you would call A tier in most usual tier lists. Cosmic is, in my opinion, still A tier. It's not S tier. It's not one of the best yet, and the reason for that is it's very early. They had to release a first version to really get people going. They already had a bunch of contributions, they had a lot of interest, but the first version that they put out is, at least in my opinion, not fully fleshed yet. You don't have any theming for the KDE applications you want to run. You can theme the GNOME ones, but not the KDE ones. It seems that they're working on it. A recent update seems to point out to the fact that they are going to be able to theme Qt and KDE apps soon, which is good, but you're also lacking a lot of animations, which for me at the very least are crucial in using a desktop. I know that's not an opinion everyone shares, but for me at least, not having things move around when I interact with them really breaks my brain's capacity to understand what is happening, and it makes Cosmic feels a little bit unpolished. It's also very early days for most of its applications. It doesn't really have its own app library yet, just like a GNOME or KDE can have. It is still a fantastic option. All the auto-tiling things, all the features that they already managed to bake in, the interface is configurable enough, but not overdoing it, and they have some interesting approaches. It's fast, it's a brand new thing built specifically for Wayland, so designed with all those modern interfaces on Linux instead of carrying around a bunch of legacy code, which means it is very good. I have very high hopes for Cosmic in the future. I will very likely move to it in the future as well once it's a little bit more refined. So to me, it stays in the good category. It is a very good desktop environment. Next, we need to look at Pantheon, which is Elementary OS's desktop. Now, last time I ranked it at the okay, the average tier, because I felt it was starting to lag a little bit behind GNOME or KDE, and I think it's still kind of the same now. They did make a lot of progress in their migration to GTK4, meaning they are now based on a much newer platform, which also enabled them to have a fully fledged Wayland session, which was lacking previously. They are still very limited in scope, and they are building an entire distro, desktop, and application ecosystem at the same time with limited resources, so they are not moving as fast as others, but I do think Elementary OS has caught up in terms of what it wants to offer. You might feel that it's too limited even compared to GNOME, especially compared to Cinnamon or KDE, or even maybe to Cosmic, but that's kind of the scope that they want to have, and they're adding some new features all the time. They are compatible with any application you might want to run, even though looks-wise it's not going to look the same. I do feel that it starts to look a little bit dated, and you can't really theme it all that well because it uses its own underlying library for widgets, meaning if you try to apply a generic GTK theme, things are probably going to break here and there. I do feel like they need a little bit more polish, but I think I'm going to place them at the good level this time around because they completed their migration, they've shown that they really can handle the workload, and even if this is not your preferred desktop environment because it feels maybe too limited, too opinionated, it is still accomplishing what it sets out to do, and I think it is really good. Now, last time I placed KDE at the top tier. For me, it is one of the best desktop environments you can get on Linux. I still think this is the case. This is the desktop I use. I would say, in my opinion at least, it is the best option you can get. There is a reason why it is the default on the Steam Deck, and it probably is going to be the default on Steam machines as well. It's because it has the most features of any desktop, and they are now integrated in a way that doesn't feel completely overwhelming. They redesigned a bunch of settings page so they are more legible. They removed a few options here and there that were too confusing. They are really focused on changing the wording, the phrasing, so things are more understandable. The settings are packed with stuff, but they are easy to navigate, I feel. The default layout makes sense. You can have all the customization power you want or have a very simple experience with it. The only thing that is still lacking for KDE, I think, is the application ecosystem. Even with efforts on Kirigami and other platforms to help develop those apps, I still feel that most new apps that are being developed are GTK, GNOME applications, and KDE still has a lot of ground to cover in that area. The default is fine if you want to use it, but as soon as you want to change something, you're going to have to involve yourself in all those settings, all those configurations. This can be daunting, but in the end, it does result in something that is now very stable, that works really well. It depends on the distro that you use it on and whether you get the updates immediately after they release, because generally the major versions can have a few sticky problems, a few bugs here and there. But if you have a distro that makes you wait a few weeks before updating you to the latest version, you generally get a very, very solid experience. It's beautiful, it's well made, it's very customizable, very themable. So for me, it is the absolute best option you can get on Linux right now. Now, of course, we also have Cinnamon, which is the desktop environment that Linux Mint showcases and brings, but you can also have it on plenty of other distributions. Cinnamon, last time I put it at the top tier, and it will stay there because it is, in my opinion, one of the absolute best options out there. It is not flashy, it is not extremely fast, extremely performant, it doesn't use the fewest resources possible, but it is very complete. It comes with a ton of graphical applications to configure everything. Mint is actually working on a lot of stuff around that. Some might be Mint-specific applications, but a lot of them are Cinnamon apps for the system administration, looking at the properties and the elements inside of your computer, getting all that info nicely laid out. It's a complete package. The look of it isn't necessarily something that will woo you away from super flashy tiling managers or super themed KDE desktops, but it is very, very functional. And that is a niche that needs to be filled on Linux as well. Something that looks basic and simple, but gives you all the tools that you need to actually use your computer on a day-to-day basis. Cinnamon generally is the no-nonsense choice that you can pick on Linux. If you don't want to be bothered with tons and tons of options that are hidden away or not that legible sometimes, if you don't want to be bogged down by a very opinionated design that you don't know if you're going to be able to use in the long run, and if you want something that has a big user base, big forums, a lot of community around it, and a lot of efforts put in it, Cinnamon is the choice that you have. And in my opinion, KDE and Cinnamon are really toe-to-toe in terms of the best options you can pick on Linux. One can be more flashy in the form of KDE. You can really tweak it to look like something absolutely crazy. One is a lot more subdued, but both will give you all the features that you really need. Some are better integrated than others, but generally Cinnamon is a fantastic choice on Linux. Now let's talk about Budgie. Budgie is in a weird place still. I placed it at no thanks last time, which means it was under average for me. Probably because I didn't really see its place in the entire ecosystem. If you wanted GNOME, you had GNOME. If you wanted a little bit more configurable GNOME, you had Cinnamon. If you wanted something very configurable, you had KDE. And I had trouble seeing where Budgie really fit into all this. It did kind of the same stuff that Cinnamon did, but on another base, with fewer developers and fewer attention. It just never really felt to me like it was a cohesive whole. Now, things might change in the future, because first, Budgie 10.10 released, and it is a very strong version that Budgie can rest on. It now is Wayland compatible, they have a brand new Wayland compositor, it works well, it is suitable for a ton of workflows, it is a good option. But really what you're looking for is Budgie 11, which is currently being worked on. It's going to be based on Qt and the KDE frameworks in parts, but they're rebuilding the entire thing. And so right now, judging Budgie on 10.10 is kind of difficult because you know this is a version that will not really evolve anymore apart from some maintenance. What will be exciting is Budgie 11, but we don't really know when this will come out, and I think this places Budgie in a weird place for me still, because I couldn't see myself using the current version. I still don't feel like it really has that much of a purpose compared to customizing Cinnamon or KDE or even GNOME plus extensions. But the version 11 feels really cool to me. I want to see what they're building with it and how it will look and how it will perform and what specific features it will bring that Budgie currently doesn't have, the differentiating factors. So for me, I'm still going to put Budgie in no thanks, but it's not because I don't have confidence in them or I think they're bad. It's just that I'm waiting to see what they're going to bring, and I'm pretty sure Budgie 11 will earn a spot higher in the next tier list next year. Now let's move on to XFCE. This is one I put at average last time I did a tier list last year. This time I think I'm going to put it in no thanks. This is a desktop that does have its place, especially on lower end devices or for people who want a no-nonsense interface that doesn't do much animations, doesn't do much visual flashiness. But I just don't feel like it is up to snuff when you compare it to GNOME, to KDE, to Cinnamon, to even Cosmic. It feels really, really dated today. The theming options are difficult and just generally don't look all that good. The application paradigm and interface design isn't really what I like to use these days, with plenty of toolbars and menu bars that lots of applications and desktops have done away with these days, for better for me or for worse for some other people. But this is just not a UI I enjoy using. They are doing all that transition to Wayland. They are really actively working on it. They're actually using a lot of the donations that they got to kickstart their work on a Wayland compositor, which I think will be based on Smithy, just like the Cosmic compositor is. But you still have all the backbone of the desktop that is old GTK stuff that isn't really updated all that often. The community is much smaller than on other desktops, and honestly, for me personally, I just don't see a use case where I would actually want to run XFCE instead of running something like Cinnamon or even something like Budgie, maybe. So I don't really think XFCE has a place for my workflow. That doesn't mean I think it is a bad option. It still does what it sets out to do, which is a simple experience. If you are reminiscing about Windows XP, Windows 98, or early days of Linux desktops like GNOME 2 and stuff like that, XFCE is really going to fit the bill for you. But for me personally, I just don't think that's something I could ever envision myself using. Now we need to talk about Mate. Last time I put it in the no thanks category because it's basically GNOME 2, and for me, GNOME 2 just outlived its usefulness. Everything that we have today is, in my opinion at least, better than that model. Although the UI is still pretty fun and pretty cool, but it's mostly nostalgia, talking from when I started using Linux with Ubuntu and the GNOME 2 versions that arrived very regularly. The problem is Mate just doesn't really evolve. It is not moving fast at all. It is not changing in any way. It is not really accomplishing that Wayland transition right now either. They're working on it, but it's not done yet. They have releases every 2-3 years. It is just not something that I feel is keeping up with the current modern Linux desktop. That might be a plus for a lot of people who prefer that kind of interface, and I totally acknowledge that Mate does have its place in the Linux desktop ecosystem, but for me personally, I just don't see where it fits. Again, just like XFCE, I couldn't see myself using a distro that uses Mate because it is just not offering me what I want. It doesn't really have its own app ecosystem. You end up with a very incoherent desktop if you use it and add some GNOME apps and KDE apps. Nothing will look right. Nothing will have the same UI paradigms. It's a shell that works, but it's mostly just a shell nowadays. Not that much of a desktop proposition. And I feel that it's really falling behind everything else. So for me, it is going in the bottom tier. It's not that I hate it, it's not that I think no one should use it, it's just that I feel it's a very, very niche use case that just is served better by a lot of other options. Now, of course, we have GNOME, and no matter where I place GNOME, people will be mad at me if I say it is top tier, people will say it's garbage, if I put it at the bottom tier, people will say it's the best, and to me, personally, I think GNOME now moves in the top tier anyway, not because it is the most full-featured, not because it is the most efficient, but because it is the most cohesive experience you could get on Linux. The design is extremely opinionated, and this is why people either really love GNOME or either really hate it. For me personally, that opinionated design works. This is why GNOME is so polished, so stable, has the best app ecosystem that Linux has ever seen since its creation. This is also why developers pick GNOME, or at least GTK and libadwaita, as the platform to build their applications these days, because it is super cohesive, it gives you the tools to make the applications you need, generally really simple and easy utilities, but more complex apps are also being built with the GNOME platform. Extensions are a thing that can really help alleviate all of that opinionated design if there are a few things that you don't like, but of course with every major GNOME update you are going to lose access to certain extensions for a short or long period of time. It's going to actually depend on whether the extension developers manage to bring things up to snuff again. So you can't really rely on extensions, which is why GNOME can be so divisive. But for me personally, GNOME is the other desktop I could see myself using. Basically, the top tier is the stuff I could see myself using right now. I could move from KDE to GNOME in a pinch and be happy and use my computer. I could move to Cinnamon and be happy and use my computer. And none of the other current propositions give me that level of enjoyment out of the computer that I use. They generally support all the latest features that you might want in the next major version that releases after the feature is introduced. Now with GNOME 50, that is not yet released at the time I'm recording this, but that is coming very soon, they're actually bringing variable refresh rate out of experimental, fractional scaling out of experimental. They're supporting a bunch of the Wayland protocols that KDE has supported for a bit longer. They have the caller pipeline and HDR support that can be enabled as well. And they have a strong focus on accessibility with a screen reader, with apps that are better designed, that work better with a keyboard. It's just a really good project that focuses on a few things and focuses on doing the core of those few things really, really well. That might not fit everyone, but it is just a fantastic desktop today. No matter if you think it is too limiting for you or not, it is one of the best options you can recommend someone on Linux. In the previous tier list, I put Deepin at the bottom tier, and that's where it is going to stay again for 2026. Again, I just don't think that this is a desktop that does a lot of things that you would actually want. Their current focus seems to be on reinventing Flatpaks with Lini apps, which are basically kind of the same thing, but yet another format that we didn't really need. And they're also focusing on integrating AI, except not only is it bad because AI is like the most unethical technology you could want to add in your computer, but also they're doing it in the worst way possible because they're not even building it on computer, they're building it with you having to add an external AI option in there, so they're just building a UI for it. It's just not the right focus for what at least I want out of my Linux desktop. The looks of it are really good. It looks really shiny, but as soon as you install something that is not a Deepin application, and generally the Deepin applications are just the ones that are pre-installed, there are no other ones out there. If you install anything else, it's going to look strongly out of place. It's going to break that illusion of a very beautiful Mac-like desktop. I just don't enjoy using Deepin. I think its apps are really limited. I think its customization options are really limited. I think the UI works. It's just not very interesting. It just doesn't feel like a good option. It's not something I could see myself recommending to anyone. I can absolutely see people enjoying it for what it is, but for me personally, it's really not something I would want to install, especially since it is kind of limited in terms of the distros you can use it with. The last time I did this tier list, Unity was still kicking a little bit, but it was at the bottom tier and it's gonna stay there because it has been pretty much abandoned, basically. The only people working on Unity were also the people working on Ubuntu Unity, and the person really making most of the dev work has gone on to university, just doesn't seem to have time to work on it anymore, and the project just will probably fall down again and will just not be picked up before a few years, maybe, if at all. So I just don't think this is a reliable option. I was pretty excited to see work happening on Unity in the past few years, trying to bring it back from the dead. The problem is it's just too old of a code base. There's just not enough interest. People really have strong opinions on Unity. People didn't like it when it arrived. I thought it was kind of fine. It worked well. I enjoyed using it on Ubuntu back in the day. But nowadays, I just don't really see a strong proposition. I don't really see Unity doing anything that other desktops wouldn't do better, would look better doing as well. So I just don't think it really has a place anymore in the Linux desktop ecosystem. If you want to use it, but you could replicate everything that it does with GNOME or KDE, and it would really just look and feel a little bit better than using Unity with more modern support, better performance. So I don't see the point anymore. Now, last time I put LXQt in the average tier, but this time I think I'm going to put it in no thanks. The main point of LXQt is being basically KDE light. It's KDE but lighter on resources with fewer bells and whistles, fewer customization options. They do reuse a lot of the stuff that KDE does to build their platform, but they try to make a shell that is simpler and just uses less RAM and less CPU. I just don't think that this is something I personally need, and I think if you have a computer that is very low on resources, you would probably just do better running something like maybe Mate or maybe XFCE, even though those are desktops I ranked at the same place or lower. Those are things that I would personally prefer using over LXQt because they do have a bit more support and they seem to have a stronger community as well. It's not to say that LXQt is a bad choice. If you enjoy using it, then all more power to you. It is not a bad option. It's just, again, not something I could see myself running on a computer because there are just better options for what I want to accomplish, even on a computer that is very resource limited. And this will conclude our tier list. There are other projects like Enlightenment, Trinity, Lumina, PaperDE, and a few others, but a lot of those don't really seem to be maintained or aren't really credible alternatives to the main big desktops we discussed today. Either they haven't received updates in a few years, or they are just stuff made by one person for fun. That doesn't make them illegitimate, but it doesn't really fit the bill of this video. Now, what you will notice in the tier list is that there are no more desktops in the average category for me. And I think that's something that reflects how the Linux desktop has evolved with that Wayland transition, with moving to a newer Linux stack. The desktops that have kept up have moved up, in at least my opinion. They have become better. They are just cementing their lead over the rest of the pack. And the desktops that don't really follow that or haven't really evolved generally tend to fall down for me, mostly because I review stuff on Linux and I like new stuff and I like change and I like having new features and having vibrant communities that move around, that do stuff. And generally the desktops I rate lower are the ones that seem to be pretty inactive. They are content with what they ship, but what they ship isn't necessarily what I enjoy using, so they're falling lower and lower over time, while the desktops that keep updating things and keep moving forward with the times, where they are going higher and higher. And I think what this means, at least in the context of this tier list, is that basically all the things that are above average are desktops I could see myself using every day with a strong preference for KDE, GNOME, and Cinnamon, and everything that is under that is just something I could never see myself running in their current state, or something I'm waiting for an update to actually give it more place and more interest, for example, in the case of Budgie. Now, of course, these are all my rankings. It's highly subjective. You probably won't have the exact same needs as me on your computer, and so your opinions will probably be very different. Feel free to let me know politely in the comments whether you agree or disagree and what your actual ranking would be for all of these desktops. If there is a major project I forgot to take a look at, let me know in the comments and I'll try to include it for the next one next year, because I'm not doing those tier lists regularly. It's one per year. I think that's more than enough enough for the clickbait. Anyway, I'll leave you in the capable hands of myself telling you about our sponsor, Tuxedo computers. You all have heard about them if you watched this channel before. They make laptops and desktops that ship with Linux pre-installed. All the hardware that they sell is specifically designed to run Linux really, really well, and they have a big range of computers, from affordable laptops all the way up to giant workstations and gaming PCs and gaming laptops. You decide. You get plenty of choices for keyboard layouts on laptops. You can have your own logo engraved on the lid. You can get it with certain versions of Linux pre-installed, and you can even have a Windows dual boot if you want. They support most countries in the world as well. So do check them out down in the description. They're the only brand I use these days for everything that you see or hear from me for all my gaming. I just use Tuxedo PCs. Really happy about them, so go check them out down in the description. Now, thank you all for watching the video. You know where all the usual YouTube buttons are. Go click them if you want. That always helps the channel. And you have plenty of links in the description as well to help support what I do. Do check it out if you want to. Thank you all for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!